Welcome, guys and gals, to another episode of Up to 11 with me, Killjoy. Might be seeing the new splash screen there, looking a bit more professional at long last. Anyway, so, today, what are we listening to? Good question. Today, as you can see, we're listening to Metal Gear Solid 4 soundtrack. Man, this is a hard soundtrack to, pick tunes from and listen to, mainly because it's one of those games where the soundtrack isn't like something like Pineapple Smash Crew, where you play the game and the soundtrack gets you pumped up. The soundtrack for this game is very much to bring you into the game, get you attached to the characters, or put you in the heat of battle. So it's kind of a lot harder to do this one, and to kind of show that with this soundtrack, I've picked 4 tracks instead of 3, as I would normally do, just to try and get the soundtrack itself across. So let's have a listen to the first track that we're going to be listening to. It's called BB Corpse. I think you hear this quite early on in the game. I'm not entirely sure, but it's to do with the 4 women bosses, I think. Anyway, this track itself is pretty manic and very twisted sounding like, as you will soon see. So yeah, let's have a listen to this. So that was the BB Corpse. Like I said, pretty dark, pretty twisted sounding track. Quite good though. I think it sets the scene for those bosses. Lots of screaming in there as well. So, also I'd like to point out at this moment that I'm not going to be doing the Love theme or Old Snake's theme. Why? Because if anyone has played this game, probably hear those tracks quite a lot throughout the game. And for those who haven't, they're probably the two of the most common themes in this game, and really and truthfully, if you want to find out about them, just go and type them into YouTube or whatever and listen to them. Right, the next tune that we're going to be listening to for this one is called Drebin893 for the character Drebin in the game. I really like this. This has got such an eerie feel to it. It's a really nice, so it's really eerie. But the instrumentation is really cool. You've got a double bass in there for the bass line, which sounds really nice. But then you've got this delayed guitar. It's like a backwards sounding guitar. It's really, really cool. So, yeah, have a listen to this one. So that was Drebin893. Like I said, that's really eerie. It's got a really eerie, mystery, kind of suspense feel to it, which I really like. I like that as a kind of a character theme, as he does play a kind of a mystery man for most of the game. So, we've had a kind of a very intense track, and we've had a kind of a mystery type track. But and the next one we're going to listen to is called "Call Me How," so I presume it's to do with Otacon. Basically, this next track is a good example of a lot of the music in this game, where you you really need to play the game and have this music playing at the same time to really appreciate that this type of track is, while you're watching the cutscene, this is the tune going behind, and it's to try and help you get emotionally attached to the character in the game. It's a very gentle piece, which I like, and it's got a really nice flow to it, even though it's quite soft, quite gentle. But it's a really nice track. So let's give this one a listen, shall we? So that was "Call Me How." Really, really lovely piece of music. That it's a shame that I didn't really have any visuals for you there. That would have probably worked a lot better. But hopefully you can see, and if you've played the game, you'll know what I mean. That's definitely a track where it's probably played during a cutscene, I think, and it just makes you feel more attached to the characters, get you more involved in the game, which is basically what Metal Gear Solid, or all the Metal Gear Solid games, are trying to do. So yeah, it's a really nice piece of music, that. I like the use of the strings in there as well. Sucks you in. Right, so to show something completely different now again, the last track that we're going to be listening to is called "Desperate Chase," and I think, and I could be very wrong when I say this, I think this has something to do when you're on the bike, but I don't know. This track is again, different. This is kind of like a rock and orchestra type track with some kind of drum and bass type drums behind it. I suppose it's kind of cool. I really like this one. This is one of my favourite ones from the game, along with Call Me How, which I think is a really beautiful piece of music. So, Desperate Chase. Let's have a listen to this one then. So yeah, that was Desperate Chase. Really cool bit of music. I mean, it goes from the other end of scale from some of the other tracks. That was really epic. So it's like a really epic rush chase scene. It's kind of like where you have the music that sucks you in the cutscenes, and then you have the epicness or the craziness of the rest of the tracks in the gameplay, which works, as you can tell. You know, that works really well. Right, the composers. Now, I can't pronounce even that. I can't pronounce Japanese names very well, so I'm not going to even attempt to say who the composers are, but I will put them up in the description for this video when it goes up. That's for some of the tracks. The other person who does two of the tracks that I've played on here is a gentleman called Gregson-Williams, who, as I can tell, has done a lot of music for all the Metal Gear Solid games. So I'll put up the Wikipedia page for him. I'm not sure if the other Japanese people have them, but I will put them up in the description, like I said, anyway. Like always, I know for a fact you can buy this on CD. It's quite expensive, but if you can pick this up, definitely worth your money. This is something you definitely want in your collection for sure. But yeah, if not, try and support your composers anyway. How, just go out there and do something that can help them. Just get people into their music or something. So yeah, Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this slightly extended episode of Up to 11, and haven't switched off already, but I'll see you lot next time.